Доброе утро, дорогие товарищи.
Good morning, dear comrades. Once again I came across a comparison of Mitsubishi Pajero Sport and Toyota Land Cruiser Prado. Many people are genuinely surprised how come that two cars with similar features may differ in price by 1.5 times. And having had the experience of owning both cars, I'd like if not to finish those debates, then at least to clear some issues. And I will not offer you the test drive stuff, since you may easily find this in the web. I will tell you about my own experience in day-to-day running of both cars, and about my feelings, but if possible, let's say I'll try to be unbiased, as far as this is real. The video turned out to be long, so I broke it into two rather conventional parts. The first part that you're currently watching is about comfort and the technical differences that actually exist. And the second part, that you can open with the link below, it concerns the details of day-to-day running, let's say so. Now make sure you have enough tea or whiskey and enjoy watching. Further, I won't make any accent on the car trim in terms of all kinds of electronic gadgets. You can easily find such information on the internet, in catalogs, on manufacturers' websites and so on. And I'm sorry, sometimes for the sake of brevity, I will call the Pajero Sport simply Pajero. I know that Pajero is a different model, but its name is very long, so let me shorten it like that and open my mouth less often, because it's cold in Russia. Dear friends, to avoid confusion, I have to make a small but important statement. The cars we're talking about are called slightly differently in different countries of the world. The first car, I will call it Mitsubishi Pajero Sport, in some countries around the world, including the United States, is known as Mitsubishi Montero Sport. This is the same car, the difference is only in what is written on its back. The situation with the second car is a bit more complicated. In Japan, its country of origin, in Eastern Europe including Russia, and in many other countries this car is called Toyota Land Cruiser Prado. In Western Europe, this same car is called Toyota Land Cruiser, just Land Cruiser without Prado. There is no such a car in the US market at all, but there is a pretty close model, let's say a model which in technical terms is very similar. It's called Toyota 4Runner. So, accordingly, please keep this in mind, and in the following video, please make an amendment, depending on where you live and what car names are familiar to you. And another quite important point is related to the same marketing mess. There is also a car named Toyota Land Cruiser in the US market. But this is not the very Land Cruiser that exists in Western Europe. This is a completely different car. The first and obvious advantage of the Pajero Sport is its price. No matter what they say, price is the key. An additional proof of this is the fact that when the third generation of Pajero Sport came out, its price tag was leveled up with Prado, and thereby zeroed out sales. In these conditions, Pajero had almost no chance. At the moment, the official price on Pajero Sport starts from 2.4 million, and the top version is 3.2 million rubles, that equals 37.9 to 49.9 thousand dollars. Prado goes at from 2.5 to 4.4 million rubles, or from 38.8 to 68.4 thousand dollars. Prado with automatic transmission costs as almost most expensive Pajero Sport version, and the cheapest Prado with a diesel engine costs even more. In addition, you will be offered a so-called temporary discount for Pajero Sport of up to 400,000 rubles or $6,000, subject to a trade-in. And it's much easier to get an extra discount from Mitsubishi dealers than from Toyota dealers. Well, that means, in fact, if we're talking about a new car, Pajero Sport costs about 1.5 times cheaper than Toyota Prado in a comparable similar trim. Regarding used cars, the situation is quite similar. The difference may be even greater. The second advantage of Pajero Sport is the trunk. It's almost 100 liters bigger than Prado's, and the entrance to the trunk is made through a lifting door with absolutely gorgeous kinematics, which allows it to be opened even in fairly tight parking spaces. Prado has a gate-type door, and to open it completely you need a significant space behind the car, which is not always realistic on the parking lot. So you have to move the car to get into the trunk and then move it back. This is not my type of hobby, you know. Well, on the other hand, Prado has a rear lifting glass, so you can pour potatoes in the trunk right from the bucket. But sorry, it's much more convenient, you agree, to open the entire trunk and not half the door. In terms of volume, there is a nuance. If you expand the second row of seats in both cars, the volume in Prado will be some bigger. There are almost 2 cubic meters or 70 cubic feet. Pajero Sport is a little smaller. Well, in general, the difference is not significant. And in both cars, by the way, you can safely load a ton and go. Nothing will happen to them, they will not fall on the spring stops, and there will be no problem. The third advantage of Pajero Sport is the rear axle differential lock that is provided already in the base. In Prado, it's available starting from the Elegance trim, and this middle-level trim costs about 3.5 million rubles, or $55,000. Now let's start searching for the reasons for this 1.5 times price difference. At first sight, I'm sorry I can't but say one thing about this. In the second generation Pajero Sport cabin looked simple, but complete. But when you look at the third generation car interior, it seems that it was worked out by 5 designers who were forbidden to communicate with each other. Every element is stylistically different, like chips from competing casinos. The buttons are small or a little smaller or a little less small, and then, when they put it all in a heap, it suddenly turned out that they forgot to insert the seat heater buttons and installed the ones they found in the warehouse, the first they noticed there. Well, looks somehow messy, I think. In cars with smart key options, when you look at the steering wheel cover, there is a dummy plug in the place where there could be an ignition switch. Well, we call it, we saved as much as we could. Well, God bless the appearance, you can finally get used to it. There are more significant differences, of course. Pajero Sport is more narrow than Prado, much more narrow, I mean, and I'm talking about the cabin space. Moreover, the difference is not between good and excellent, but between closely and spacious. It feels very good when you change from Prado to Pajero Sport without a brake. It's even worse than that. In the second generation Pajero, it was possible to somehow get behind the wheel and find more or less comfortable position. But in the third, they added for some reason this stupid horizontal bar, on which the leg rests, and you're getting a good bruise in a moment. The people even learned to make all sorts of soft covers by hand, to give the leg a chance to live to retirement. Let's go further. In the second row of Prado, 3 adults may sit quite comfortably. They are fine. In Pajero Sport, you can also cram the same 3 people. They will even fit there, but they are unlikely to say thank you for that. You won't get far with this. The third row. In Prado, it's an available option. Pajero Sport, in its turn, is provided for our Russian car market with 2 rows and 5 seats only. Well, in case this fact is relevant for you. The legroom on the first 2 rows is generally enough both here and there, but Prado is still a little more spacious. Another slight difference that can be noticed simply by looking into the cabin. In Prado, the climate system is 3-zone type. In Pajero Sport, it's only 2-zone. This is relevant for those who carry passengers in the rear row. Now let's try to climb to get behind the wheel. The first thing you notice in this process is that the step in Prado is more convenient. Well, what means more convenient? It can simply be used, unlike this thin stick in Pajero Sport, which is provided purely nominally, like a number 150 on an old-timer speedometer. When we sit behind the wheel, we see that the buttons in Prado are big, all of them. You can press them almost with your fist. The buttons in Pajero Sport are small. The reason, by the way, is inexplicable. There is enough room, nothing prevented from making them bigger, And the second generation was somehow better again with this. The interior of the third was made prettier, but less convenient for some reason. The mirror control is what made me hiccup. It was transferred from Pajero, which is not sport, and it's completely teeny-weeny like as you were supposed to use tweezers to press all these levers and buttons. Although again, in the second generation Pajero Sport, the mirror control unit was absolutely normal, and nothing bad would have happened if they decided to change nothing with it. Again, a strange decision, I think. And a bit more about mirrors. Firstly, Prado has automatic folding in basic trim already. I mean automatic folding and lowering mirrors when parking, when you plug in the reverse gear. And the mirrors themselves, if Prado is being equipped with large off-road type mirrors from generation to generation, then Pajero Sport in its third coming goes with the reduced size ones. And this affected the visibility. In the second generation, in the previous one, mirrors were better. You were able to see more, farther, and in whole, not in parts. Though, it should be noted that some buttons in Prado are removed in an absolutely incomprehensible zone under the wheel. They are invisible. They are not visible there at all. That means you have to search the buttons only by touch, knowing where which one is, or trying to look just like that. In Pajero Sport, this is better. Buttons are also there, but they are somehow more visible. And now bad news. There is no separate button for the central lock in Pajero Sport. The driver got out, opened his door, all the other doors are unlocked at once. I was really annoyed with this. And there is no American lock option as well. When you turn off the car alarm, and only the driver's door is unlocked, the rest remain locked. I really like this option with my paranoia, and I'm happy to have it installed in Prado. The rear view mirror in Pajero Sport hangs in such a way that it overlaps the view forward. This is due to the fact that the ceiling is low in Pajero Sport, and the mirror, of course, hangs a little lower, but here's already the eye level. This can be partially treated by adjusting the mirror, moving it well as high as possible to the ceiling, but in general, it makes nervous. So, enough for the mirrors. The seats. The seats in the third Pajero Sport are comfortable. Cool seats. Nice to touch leather. I can't say anything bad about them. They are done really well. Well done. Perhaps they are even more interesting than in Prado, at least according to my feelings, let's say so. As for steering wheel adjustments, in both cars, the steering wheel is adjustable in tilt and reach, but in Pajero Sport the adjustment is mechanical regardless of the trim. In Prado, starting with the elegance trim, the adjustment is electric. Well, this is not some critical difference. It is not often necessary to move the steering wheel usually. But if you want to adjust the steering wheel on the go, with electric adjustment, it's much easier and safer. But here's another benefit of electric adjustment. In Prado, when the ignition is turned off, the steering wheel moves forward and upward, thus making the getting on and off easier and more pleasant. Terribly nice of Toyota. Let's take a look under cover. In Pajero Sport, there are two engines to choose from, gasoline and diesel, and both of them are quite weak. There are three engines in Prado, two gasoline and a diesel engine. The younger gasoline and diesel are also stunted, even more than in Pajero Sport, but there is a 4-liter engine for which, by the way, compared to a diesel engine, they almost do not ask for extra money. And with this gasoline, Prado goes faster than most cars on the roads, so it may be recommended for homemade Schumachers. Next, transmissions. The mechanical ones in both cars are, let's say, an acquired taste. I mean the convenience of gear switching, that is rich in cargo aroma, let's say. The automatic transmission in Pajero Sport is of 8 gears, and in Prado it's of 6 gears respectively. I have no particular claims to either box. Well, it does what it is supposed to. Pajero Sport is also equipped with gear shift pedals, but as for me, it's a kind of a play game. Well, some enjoy playing with them. The transfer boxes are functionally very similar. permanent four-wheel drive with center differential, more torque is given to the rear axle than to the front. Well, in general, from the point of view of functionality, it's almost the same. There are only two differences. In Pajero Sport, you can disable the front axle. In Prado, you cannot. Prado will always go with all four wheels active. In Pajero Sport, you can turn off the front axle and happily think that it saves some noticeable amount of fuel. Prado has another advantage. Here you can turn on the lower gear, not including the center differential lock, which is sometimes useful, and I use this thing. In Pajero Sport, you first activate the lock, and only then you can turn on the lower gear, no options. On the whole, well, I don't see any fundamental difference. The transfer boxes are both reliable, good, and in general we can say that they are both unkillable. Well, if anybody still can make a car death-proof, you know. There is a rear differential lock in both cars, but in Pajero Sport it appears in any trim. In Prado, as I said, it starts with elegance trim only. But Pajero Sport goes without the kinetic dynamic suspension system, or KDSS, that makes Prado reduce rolls while driving in corners, and in opposite, gives more freedom to the stabilizers, to increase the suspension travel when you're on an off-road trophy. The shock absorbers with variable stiffness are available only in Prado, not Pajero. And the rear air suspension, you may order it for Prado, but it's unavailable in any trim level of Pajero Sport. The next difference is the fuel tank. In both second and third generation Pajero Sport, its capacity is 70 liters, or 18.5 gallons. I think it looks like a mockery for such a car, especially for a gasoline engine. That's a good solution only for riding around the gas station club members. The Prado's tank is 87 liters or 23 gallons. And beside that, you may order an original additional fuel tank of 45 liters or 12 gallons. So there will be more than 130 liters or almost 35 gallons overall. This additional tank is placed under the trunk floor instead of the spare tire. So in this case, the spare wheel will have to be hung on the back door. When driving on the road, it's very difficult to ignore the fact that Prado is quieter. It holds the straight line better, it is softer, it hills less in corners, it transfers less rough bumps to the steering wheel. That means, on a bad road, when you go on Pajero Sport, it can be noisy in the cabin. You have to catch a car just to drive straight. Fingers lying on the steering wheel can tactilely count all the stones that the tires drove through. You get frightened by huge banks, and so on. Prado, in the same place, at the same speed, makes quite a difference. You just go absolutely relaxed. The difference is huge, but it can be shown by the video. It should be tried to get the full experience. This is best felt when, after a week or two of Prado everyday practice, you get behind the wheel of Pajero Sport, and you understand everything at once. Here it is, the difference. The worse the road, the bigger the difference, however oddly it may seem. In addition to all of the above, Pajero Sport starts to jump like a happy goat. Moreover, the colleagues from the respectable Russian periodical Auto Review made an absolutely gorgeous video that shows very clearly the difference in the behavior of Pajero Sport and Prado on the same road. Well, in general, there's nothing even to comment on. Now let's move further on. Climate control. The climate in Prado keeps the temperature with a death grip. This to some extent can be understood from previous videos on my channel. You can watch if you like. In second generation of Pajero Sport, it was a complete disaster with climate. There, it was necessary to constantly twist it both in winter and in summer, because of permanent hot and cold roller coaster. By the way, we'll look at this question a little later. We'll see the reasons for it, such a behavior. In the third generation, it became much better, but still, if in Prado you can set, say, 22 degrees Celsius or 72 Fahrenheit and forget about these temperature controllers, at least until spring, then in Pajero Sport, even in its third generation, this doesn't work. You have to go and twist it from time to time. Well, at least my delicate body needs this constant adjustment. I don't like it when the temperature floats like the prices for air tickets, when you still don't know the exact vacation dates. Time for an interim summary. Prado is a much more comfortable car, more comfortable in every sense, and in every sense, it's significantly more comfortable. And now let's look at the nuances of operation. This concludes the first part. If you have enough time and desire, you may follow the link below and start watching the second part. It is about day-to-day operation, about the differences in operation of these two wonderful cars.